There's a town in Arizona where your GPS will tell you you've arrived, and there will be nothing there, literally. The town is called Nothing. This is a video about 9 Arizona towns so isolated, so buried in canyon country and tribal land, and burnt-out desert, that even Google Maps gives up and starts guessing. We're talking a village where the U.S. mail arrives by mule because there are no roads. A cursed gas station where every single owner has been mauled by their own zoo animals. A ghost town founded by 5 drunk guys in 1977 that a real estate company once gave away for free on Father's Day. And a place where 2 million retirees show up every January, some of them naked, to live next to a monument honoring a camel driver from the Ottoman Empire. If you don't subscribe after this one, I'm going to assume your GPS also can't find the button. Hit it now. Let's go. Number 9. Wikieup. Wikieup sits at about 1,900 feet in the Big Sandy River Valley along US 93 between Wickenburg and Kingman, surrounded by the Hualapai and Aquarius Mountains. Population as of the 2020 census, 135 people. Median age, 66. Number of residents under 18 in recent samples, 0. The name comes from the Mojave and Hualapai word for shelter, which is ironic because in 2021 the town watched its own shelter burn to the ground. The Wikieup trading post was the beating heart of this place for decades, a roadside monument to desert weirdness with giant fake cacti out front, a wooden cigar store Indian by the door, a fortune-telling animatronic miner inside, a fake jail cell for photo ops, and merchandise that included rattlesnake jerky and keychains made from actual rattlesnake parts. Wikieup proudly calls itself the rattlesnake capital of Arizona, and the trading post leaned into that identity with everything it had. Then on the night of May 23, 2021, the whole thing caught fire. The Pinyon Pine Fire District took an hour to arrive, and when they got there were stretches of 10 to 15 minutes during the fight where there was literally no water. A DOT had to truck it in from a nearby yard. By morning, the trading post was gone. The cause was never officially announced. As of right now, it has not been rebuilt. The cigar store Indian still stands along the highway. The rocket-riding Snoopy and Woodstock statue is still there too. The actual soul of the place is ash. What is still alive in Wikieup is Lucia's restaurant at milepost 117, which has one of the best origin stories of any restaurant in Arizona. The owner, Myron Storing, met his future wife Lucia while flying oil survey missions over the Amazon jungle in Peru. They eventually opened a turquoise jewelry business and a restaurant famous for black walnut cream pie, koi ponds with 25-cent gumball machine fish food, and peacocks roaming the patio. It has 4.6 stars on Google. In a town of 135 people with no hospital, no high school, and earthquake activity over 400% above the national average, that restaurant is doing more heavy lifting than any building in America. There's also a K-8 school called Owens Elementary with about 24 students. No high school. Kids bus 54 miles to Kingman or Baghdad, which means a teenager in Wikieup spends more time commuting each day than some people in Manhattan. There is no hospital. The nearest emergency room is over an hour away, depending on which direction you're bleeding. There is one resident pilot. The Big Sandy River runs through town and flash floods regularly, carving silt cliffs and proto-hoodoos that erosion strips before they fully form. The Big Sandy Fire in 2022 burned 150 acres and threatened the US 93 bridge. The Pilot Fire in 2023 burned nearly 35,000 acres in the nearby Mohan Mountains. Summer highs hit 119 degrees Fahrenheit. Wikieup is supposed to mean shelter. Right now, it's mostly the memory of one. Number 8. Chloride. Chloride is the oldest continuously inhabited mining town in Arizona, and its post office has been running without a break since 1893. That post office is currently housed in a building that used to be a pool hall. The pool rack is still hanging above the door. The 2020 census counted 229 residents, and the median age is 76 and a half, which means this town is technically a retirement colony of artists, eccentrics, and desert rats, who happen to run a mock Wild West theme park on alternating Saturdays. It sits in a pocket of the Surbat Mountains in Mojave County, about 20 miles north of Kingman and 4 miles off US 93. Cell service is unreliable. The closest grocery store is in Kingman. The town is a federally designated dark sky area, which is a polite way of saying nothing here generates light because nothing here generates anything. Silver miners founded Chloride around 1862. The name comes from silver chloride, the ore they were pulling out of the ground. In 1863, Hualapai warriors killed 2 of those miners, by throwing rocks down their mine shaft, which is one of those frontier deaths that doesn't make it into the John Wayne movies. A treaty in 1870 calmed things down. The Santa Fe Railroad showed up in 1899. At its peak between 1900 and 1920, this tiny mountain pocket had 5,000 residents and 75 working mines. Then the silver ran out. The mines closed by 1944 and the population cratered. The town should have died. Instead, in the 1950s and 1960s, hippies and artists started trickling in. In 1927, the Western novelist Louis L'Amour passed through Chloride during a low point in his career, joined the Bucket Brigade when the town caught fire, and watched most of it burn to the ground. He was decades away from becoming the best-selling frontier author in history, and on that particular night, he was just another broke drifter hauling water. Jack Nicholson filmed a movie called The Rebel Rousers here in 1970. A Belgian-American artist named Tony Mafia split his last decades between Hoboken, Belgium, and Chloride, and is buried in the local cemetery. A local legend claims an old stone house on the edge of town was built by a naval officer who had developed a paralyzing fear of drowning, moved to the driest place he could find to escape water, and then died in a drowning accident on his own property. The house later became a brothel. The town's signature draw is a massive mural complex called The Journey, painted in 1966 by a young art student named Roy Purcell across granite boulders about a mile east of town. It features a goddess figure, yin and yang symbols, a serpent, and an image of the old Tennessee mine being attacked by a supernatural being. Purcell came back and restored it himself in 2005 using automobile paint for desert durability. The dirt road out to it is passable in dry weather, terrifying in monsoon season, and marked by hand-painted arrow rocks. What's open in Chloride right now? Yesterday's restaurant and the old Butterfield stage stop with 120 beers on the menu. The Mine Shaft Market. Mock gunfights by the high desert drifters on the first and third Saturdays at high noon in a replica town called Cyanide Springs, a 1916 Baptist church that claims to be Arizona's oldest continuously operating church, a volunteer fire department that is reportedly Arizona's oldest and proudly displays a 1939 Ford fire engine, and mountain lions, bobcats, javelinas, tarantulas, and rattlesnakes patrolling the surrounding hills, which are still scattered with open vertical mine shafts like Wile E. Coyote traps. Chloride survives, slightly out of breath, on caffeine, snowbird money, and irony. Number 7. Nothing. Nothing. Arizona is a 6-acre ghost town on US 93 that was founded in 1977 by 5 drunk friends and has been abandoned, unabandoned, and reabandoned at least 3 times. Population, 0. Peak population, 4. The official town sign, which is still standing at milepost 148 between Wickenburg and Wikieup, reads, and I am quoting the actual founding document here, "The staunch citizens of Nothing are full of hope, faith, and believe in the work ethic. Through the years, these dedicated people had faith in nothing, hoped for nothing, worked at nothing, for nothing." That is not a joke. That is the mission statement. The patriarch was a man named Buddy Kenworthy, who picked a 6-acre patch of empty desert on the Las Vegas to Phoenix corridor and built a gas station, a garage, a convenience store he named All-Mart, a flatbed truck selling rocks as souvenirs, a taco stand, and a bar called Tain't Much Ado. A fire destroyed his businesses in 1988. He rebuilt. He ran it for 28 years total. Then in 2005, he gave up and walked away. By 2008, the roof was caving in. A guy named Mike Jensen bought the entire town and tried to turn it into a portable pizza oven stop with RV hookups. PMQ Pizza Magazine actually covered him. By 2011, the windows were boarded up again. There's an unverified rural rumor that the final death blow was a grease fire that started while someone was cooking a pizza, which, if true, would be the most poetic cause of death in Arizona real estate history. In 2016, Century 21 Real Estate ran an actual Father's Day campaign called Give Dad Nothing, where they gave away free 24-hour leases on plots of nothing for June 19th. Recipients got a downloadable certificate of nothing. The hashtag was Give Dad Nothing. A real corporation spent real marketing dollars on this. Nothing currently consists of a graffiti-covered All-Mart with boarded windows, a ruined gas station, a concrete foundation, and the weathered town sign. A DOT installed one of only 4 motorist call boxes on all of US 93 at this location, because if you break down in nothing, you are genuinely several lifetimes from help. Summers hit 110. There's no shade. There's no water. There are scorpions. The proposed I-11 highway corridor may eventually bulldoze the entire site, which would mean that nothing finally, definitively, became nothing. It would also be the most on-brand ending in American real estate history. Number 6. Crown King. Crown King is 28 miles off Interstate 17, up a 26-mile dirt road that locals sell t-shirts about surviving. It sits at nearly 5,800 feet in the Bradshaw Mountains, and the road in follows the abandoned grade of the Bradshaw Mountain Railroad, which was built in 1904 and killed in 1926. The final 13 miles climb 2,000 feet past more than 3 dozen single-lane sections carved through hard rock, with sheer drop-offs that sober drivers respect and drunk drivers don't get to remember. The 2020 census counted 83 full-time residents. Cell service is a coin flip. T-Mobile customers should bring a flare gun. The town was built around the Crown King mine in 1888, which produced roughly $2 million in gold before its 3 founding owners erupted into a feud involving litigation, violence, and the time one of them lost a buckboard full of gold crossing a flooded creek. The mine collapsed by 1900. The railroad came and went. The population peaked at 275 during World War II, and then the gold ran out and Crown King became what it is today. A handful of full-timers, about 1,000 weekend cabin owners, 1 volunteer fire department, and what might be the oldest continuously operating saloon in Arizona. That saloon has a story worth the drive alone. It was originally built in the 1890s in a nearby ghost town called Oro Bell by a man called Burro John Ravello, who ran it as a combination whorehouse, gambling den, and bar. Around 1906, a miner named Tom Anderson disassembled the entire building board by board, hauled it more than 2 miles through the mountains to Crown King, and put it back together. The upstairs once held 7 cribs for prostitution. The current owner says the upstairs windows are still open and may have a couple of ladies waiting to be seen. Anderson ran it until he died in the 1950s. Crown King holds Arizona's record for most rain in a single month, nearly 17 inches in August 1951, and got over 87 inches of snow in January 1949. It's one of the only places in Arizona where you can be heat-stroked and hypothermic in the same parking lot. There's a one-room red schoolhouse built in 1917 that still operates with about 6 students, making it one of the smallest active schools in the state. High schoolers either drive an hour each way down that same dirt road, or their mothers rent apartments in Prescott during the school year and come back on weekends. The commitment to living here is not casual. The fires keep coming for this place. The Lane 2 fire in 2008 burned 6,000 acres and stopped a quarter-mile from Main Street. In gratitude, a hotshot crew carved a 300-pound wooden bear from a fallen tree that now sits on the general store deck. The 2012 Gladiator fire burned over 16,000 acres, cost $14 million to contain, and forced evacuation of everyone except about 10 holdouts who stayed to watch 30-foot flames lick the highway. The 2022 Crooks Fire forced firefighters to wrap the 1875 Palace Station stagecoach stop in heat-reflective foil like an enormous burrito. Crown King's annual golf tournament has people tee off from a mountaintop and whack the ball downhill toward the saloon with hot dog and beer checkpoints along the way. They also hold an apple festival. Mostly, though, they hold on. Number 5. Two Guns. Every single attempt to build a business at Two Guns, Arizona has either burned down, been mauled by an animal, or collapsed under circumstances that locals have been calling a curse for 100 years. It sits on a 232-acre patch off Yes 40 exit, 230 in Coconino County, on the east rim of Canyon Diablo, half an hour from Flagstaff. The ruins from the 1920s, 1930s, 1960s, and 1970s are all rotting on top of each other like a roadside lasagna of doomed entrepreneurial ambition. The supposed source of the curse is the Apache Death Cave, where in 1878, according to legend, a Navajo war party trapped 42 Apache raiders inside a limestone fissure, piled sagebrush at the entrance, and suffocated them. The Apache reportedly slit their own horses' throats trying to seal the cave with corpses and died singing death chants. Terrifying story. One problem. Historians have found no documentation of this massacre before 1968, when a pulp Western novelist named Gladwell Richardson, who had run the Two Guns trading post in the 1950s, published a 28-page booklet claiming it as history. Richardson also fabricated stories about Billy the Kid hiding in nearby Canyon Diablo. So, the ancient Apache curse may have been invented by a guy trying to sell souvenirs. What is definitely real is the parade of disasters. In the 1920s, a white man named Henry Miller showed up, pretended to be a full-blooded Apache, called himself Chief Crazy Thunder, leased land from the local property owner, and built a fake stone cliff dwelling above the cave. He sold actual human skulls and bones from inside as souvenirs. He also built a private zoo with mountain lions, lynxes, bobcats, cougars, Gila monsters, snakes, and porcupines. In 1926, after a lease dispute, Miller shot the property owner in the neck and was acquitted on self-defense. Then karma started billing. Miller was attacked by his own mountain lion, then his own lynx, then his own Gila monster, then his bobcat mauled him so badly he was hospitalized. Every commercial revival since has met similar fates. In 1971, just as I-40 opened and should have brought a tourist boom, a massive fire destroyed the entire Texaco and zoo complex that had been rebuilt on the site. A 1970s KOA campground attempt failed. In 2021, a developer proposed a 787-unit luxury resort with 78 tipis, 43 wagons, 19 yurts, a cliffside hotel, a water park, and a helipad. The county rejected it. The proposal also wanted to put teepees on Navajo and Hopi land, which a Navajo County supervisor politely called a stereotype. Today the site is fenced, posted private, and constantly trespassed. Visitors find rattlesnakes, broken glass, the graffiti-painted shell of a 1970s shell station, the empty KOA office, the limestone mouth of the Death Cave, and the 1915 Canyon Diablo steel bridge slowly being eaten by gravity. Every few years, someone new announces plans to develop the site. Every few years, those plans collapse. The curse, real or invented, remains undefeated. Two Guns doesn't need your help. Two Guns needs you to leave it alone. If you're still watching, do me a favor and hit subscribe. This channel covers the wildest places to live, move, and retire in America every single week, and we're only halfway through this list. Trust me, number 1 is worth the wait. Number 4, Oatman. Oatman is a Mojave County mining town on Route 66, with 102 human residents and several dozen federally protected wild burros who, under U.S. law, outrank every single one of them. These burros are descendants of pack animals abandoned when the gold mines closed in 1941, and they are protected under the 1971 Wild Free-Roaming Horses and Burros Act. You cannot move them, harass them, or take them home. They will walk into your car if you stop on Main Street. Many of the females wander around with literal baby on board stickers on their flanks because they have foals following behind them. The Bureau of Land Management generally rounds up wild burros elsewhere by helicopter, but spares Oatman because, in their own words, that town is basically all about burros. Tourists feed them carrots and alfalfa cubes from the gift shops. The burros know this. They will nudge your pockets. They will block traffic. They will stand in the middle of the road staring at you with the quiet confidence of a creature that knows it has more legal protection than you do. Getting there is an adventure in itself. Sitgreaves Pass is an 8-mile stretch of historic Route 66 with 191 curves, switchbacks, and hairpin turns. No guardrails. Drop-offs measured in thousands of feet. The BLM enforces a 40-foot vehicle length restriction, so if you try it in a large RV, you are operating entirely on faith and prayers. Before World War II, cars with gravity-fed fuel systems sometimes had to drive up the Gold Hill grade in reverse just to keep gasoline flowing to the engine. Locals would charge tourists to drive their cars over the pass for them. The town's namesake is the Dark Chapter. Olive Oatman was a 13-year-old girl from a Mormon splinter sect whose family was attacked along the Gila River in 1851 by Yavapai raiders. Her parents and 4 siblings were killed. Her brother Lorenzo was clubbed and left for dead but survived. Olive and her younger sister Mary Ann were taken captive, eventually traded to the Mojave people for 2 horses, blankets, vegetables, and beads, and adopted into a chief's family. Both girls received the traditional Mojave blue cactus ink chin tattoo, which, in Mojave belief, was necessary for your ancestors to recognize you in the afterlife. Mary Ann starved to death around 1855. Olive was ransomed back in 1856, became a Victorian-era celebrity, and lectured publicly about her captivity. Some historians argue she may have had a Mojave husband and children, and that her depression after rescue was actually grief at being taken from her adopted family. She died in Texas in 1903. The town named for her was founded in 1915, around a $10 million gold strike, and exploded to 3,500 residents in a single year. The 1902 Oatman Hotel survived the big fire of 1921 and is the oldest 2-story adobe building in Mojave County. Clark Gable and Carol Lombard reportedly honeymooned there in 1939, although historians are split on whether that's fact or marketing. The hotel walls are covered in dollar bills signed by visitors. The resident ghost is reportedly an Irish miner named William Ray Flower, who drank himself to death and fell into a mine shaft behind the building. Staff call him Odie and blame him for bagpipe sounds, levitating glasses, and toilets flushing in empty bathrooms. The town has a post office, no school, no gas station, no grocery store, and 2 daily mock gunfights at 1:30 and 3:30 by the Oatman Ghost Rider Gunfighters, the oldest gunfight troop in Arizona. Annual events include a bed race on Labor Day, a sidewalk egg fry on the 4th of July using only sun and concrete, and the Burro Biscuit Toss in February, which is exactly what you think it is. The town's slogan is "The Town That Refused to Die." Despite multiple sincere attempts by geography, the town has held the line. Number 3, Cibecue. This is the one that stops being funny. Cibecue sits in deep canyon country on the Fort Apache Reservation in Navajo County, more than 30 miles up Indian Route 12 from US 60. Population 1,816. Poverty rate nearly 50%. Per capita income about $12,000 in a state where the median household pulls over $80,000. There is no reliable cell service. When it storms, the internet goes out for hours. 60% of low-income households in Navajo County have no internet at all. Outsiders need a White Mountain Apache permit just to drive past town. On August 30th, 1881, something happened here that is still unique in the entire history of the U.S. military. A Cibecue Apache medicine man known as the Prophet began preaching that he could resurrect the dead and that all white people would be expelled from Arizona. His ceremonies were drawing massive crowds. Colonel Eugene Carr left Fort Apache with 2 cavalry troops and 23 Apache scouts to arrest him. The arrest went peacefully. Then, on the march back, hundreds of the medicine man's followers attacked the column, and every single one of the 23 Apache scouts mutinied and joined the attackers. It remains the only wholesale mutiny of an Indian scout company in U.S. military history. Captain Edmund Hentig was shot in the back, the bullet passing through his heart. Soldiers caught the medicine man, shot him through the mouth at close range, found him still alive that night, and killed him with an axe. 7 cavalry soldiers and around 12 Apaches died, more soldiers than any other single engagement in the Arizona Indian Wars. The fallout from that one afternoon in Cibecue sparked the general Apache uprising that drove Geronimo, Nietzsche, and Ju off the reservation and plunged Arizona, New Mexico, and northern Mexico into 2 years of warfare. There is no marker at the battlefield. The battlefield is the village. Kids walk to school over the same creek where Captain Hentig bled out. The canyon walls haven't moved. The memory hasn't either. The modern town runs on a sawmill that hasn't operated since the 2002 Rodeo Chidisky fire burned through reservation timber. That fire was, at the time, Arizona's second largest wildfire on record. 76% of residents heat with wood. The school is the BIE-funded Cibecue Community School. There's a public airstrip 4 nautical miles southeast of town, the kind of runway that bush pilots use and everyone else considers aspirational. You can sometimes pick up KNNB-FM, Apache radio based in White River, which is the closest thing to a media connection this town has. There's a stunning waterfall hike up Cibecue Creek to a 75-foot drop, but it requires a tribal permit. The sacred salt banks 3 miles past it, Travertine Springs streaked orange, red, and dark green, are closed to outsiders permanently. Cibecue means horizontally red valley in western Apache. The valley remembers what happened. The rest of the country mostly does not. Number 2, Quartzsite. Quartzsite has the most extreme seasonal population swing in America. Roughly 2,400 permanent residents in summer. As many as 2 million EV snowbirds in January and February. That is a swing of nearly 1,000 to 1. It sits at 879 feet on the La Posa Plain in La Paz County on Interstate 10, 18 miles from California. La Paz County is the least densely populated county in Arizona at under 4 people per square mile. And yet, every winter, Quartzsite becomes one of the largest temporary concentrations of human beings on the planet. The town started in 1856 as Fort Tyson, which was never a real military fort, just a stagecoach waterhole built by a settler named Charles Tyson. A 19th century memoirist called it the most melancholy and uninviting stage stop she'd ever seen. The name changed to Quartzsite in 1897, which was actually a typo for Quartzsite that nobody ever bothered to fix. It was basically a ghost town until 1965, when local rockhounds founded the Quartzsite Pow Wow Gem and Mineral Show, and the snowbirds started coming. Now the winter draws include the Powwow, the big tent RV show with over 2,000 vendors and 160,000 attendees, Quartzfest for ham radio operators, and the Rubber Tramp Rendezvous, the van dweller gathering that was made famous by the movie Nomadland. Most of these snowbirds camp for free or for $180 a season on 11,400 acres of BLM land called the La Posa Long-Term Visitor Area, which includes a clothing optional zone called the Magic Circle. Yes, naked snowbirds. It's the cheapest winter housing in America. The most visited monument in town is a 9-foot stone pyramid topped with a steel camel silhouette called the High Jolly Monument. High Jolly was Haji Ali, born around 1828 in Smyrna in the Ottoman Empire, to a Greek mother and a Syrian Arab father. He converted to Islam, made the Hajj pilgrimage, and in 1856 was hired by then Secretary of War Jefferson Davis to drive camels for the U.S. Army Camel Corps. And yes, the United States Army had a Camel Corps. He helped lead 33 camels from Texas to California, each carrying 600 to 800 pounds. The program was abandoned in 1864 because horses panicked at the sight of camels. Some of the camels were released into the desert near Gila Bend, and feral camel sightings continued in Arizona into the early 1900s. Imagine driving a wagon across the Sonoran Desert in 1893 and seeing a camel just standing there. That actually happened, more than once. High Jolly tried prospecting, freight hauling, and scouting after the Corps disbanded. He became a U.S. citizen in 1880 and died broke in Quartzsite in 1902, dependent on a local merchant for handouts. There's a folk song about him recorded by the New Christie Minstrels. He is on the National Register of Historic Places. Quartzsite also had the Naked Bookseller. Paul Weiner ran Reader's Oasis books for about 30 years, wearing nothing but a crocheted sock pouch held by fishing line, a straw hat, sandals, and a necklace. He played boogie-woogie piano under the stage name Sweet Pie. His shop held 180,000 titles. He died in 2019 at 75. The town's politics deserve their own documentary. In 1994, the mayor was accused of trying to have the former mayor killed in a murder-for-hire scheme and was convicted, though the conviction was later overturned. In 2011, 6 of the town's 10 police officers signed a no-confidence letter against the police chief and were all fired. The council declared a state of emergency to strip the mayor of authority and handed power to the chief. The Oath Keepers held a rally in town. The FBI was reportedly contacted. Quartzsite is what happens when American civic life is fully exposed to 122-degree summer heat. By April, almost everyone leaves. Even the camels once upon a time knew when to go. Number 1. Supai. Supai sits 8 miles from the nearest road, 3,000 feet below the Colorado Plateau at the bottom of the Grand Canyon. It is the most remote community in the contiguous United States. It is the only place in America where the U.S. mail is still delivered by mule. And the 2020 census listed its population as 0 because census workers, like everyone else, did not want to hike down. The actual population is around 500 members of the Havasupai Nation, the people of the blue-green water, who have lived in this slot of the Grand Canyon for over 1,000 years. To get there, you drive 60 miles up Indian Road 18 from Old Route 66, park at Hualapai Hilltop, and walk down 2,000 vertical feet through Hualapai Canyon. There are no cars in the village. There is one helicopter pad, several hundred dogs, and a pack of mules that handle your mail, your groceries, and your Amazon orders. The Peach Springs Post Office, where mail bound for Supai is staged, is the only post office in America with a walk-in freezer because perishables and an 8-mile mule descent don't usually appear in the same logistics plan. If you've made it to the end of this video, you're clearly someone who appreciates the weird, the forgotten, and the wildly underestimated corners of this country. If you haven't subscribed yet, now would be the time. We do this every week. The history of Supai gets heavy. In 1882, the federal government boxed the Havasupai into a 518-acre canyon reservation and seized their winter hunting plateau. They fought for nearly a century and got 185,000 acres back in 1975. Then, in the early 1990s, Arizona State University researchers collected 400 blood samples from tribal members, supposedly to study diabetes. Without consent, the university used that DNA for studies on schizophrenia, inbreeding, and migration patterns that contradicted the tribe's sacred origin story. In Havasupai belief, bodies must be buried whole. The tribe banished the researchers in 2003, sued ASU, and settled for $700,000 plus the return of every sample. ASU spent $1.7 million on lawyers learning that lesson. The floods are the other constant. The 1910 flood was the largest on record and accidentally created Havasu Falls by destroying its predecessor. In August 2008, the Redlands Dam upstream burst and 350 people were helicoptered out, while a private chopper company was reportedly charging $100 a head during the rescue. In August 2024, another flash flood killed a 33-year-old woman, stranded over 100 hikers, and forced the governor to deploy the Arizona National Guard in a Black Hawk operation that officials called one of the largest missions the Guard had ever run. And yet, Supai is still here. Has been here for 1,000 years, will probably be here 1,000 more. A K-8 school where teachers commit to living at the bottom of a canyon because the commute is, well, there is no commute. A 24-room lodge that's the only air-conditioned building in town. The Cinyella store with a $10 minimum on credit cards and frozen Gatorades that hikers describe in almost religious terms after the 8-mile descent in July heat. The tribal cafe where the Supai taco on fry bread is the only correct order and has been for longer than most restaurant chains have existed. There's even a reggae scene that dates back to the 1950s when California visitors brought Bob Marley records into the canyon and the music just stayed. The canyon has its own acoustic. The sound bounces off sandstone walls that are 500 million years old. Reggae, it turns out, sounds incredible at the bottom of the Grand Canyon. Permits to visit cost $455 per person for a mandatory 3-night stay. They sell out in minutes every February. They don't accept resale, Venmo, or excuses. Supai is the hardest place to get to in the lower 48, the easiest place to underestimate, and a 1,000-year-old answer to the question of whether isolation is a punishment or a choice. For the Havasupai, it has always been the latter. 9 towns, 1 state, 85% of the land belongs to someone who isn't you. Arizona has 22 federally recognized tribal nations, 194 named mountain ranges, 13 species of rattlesnake, which is more than any other state, and a 277-mile canyon, so deep that one of its inhabited villages still gets mail by mule. Nearly a third of the state is reservation land. The record high was 128 degrees in Lake Havasu City. The record low was -40 at Holly Lake, the only temperature where Fahrenheit and Celsius agree on anything. Phoenix logged 31 consecutive days above 110 degrees in the summer of 2023, and the county recorded 645 heat-related deaths that year alone. The heat will kill you. The snakes outnumber the species count of any other state, and the only honest welcome sign is the one in Nothing, Arizona, which warns you that the staunch citizens have worked at nothing, for nothing, and would politely like you to do the same. The map says you've arrived. The map is, as ever, lying.